Welcome to Sincast, presented by Cinemasins.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Sincast. This is Chris Atkinson from Cinemasins, joined by Jeremy Scott, the voice of Cinemasins.
Hello.
And Barrett Scher, writer of Music Video Sins.
Hello.
And today we're going to talk a little bit about some trailers and about some small moments in movies that we love. But you know what?
I feel like I'm taking crazy pills! We're dicks!
Lord Jesus! Lord Jesus!
This trailer that has been playing on TV a bunch of times that I can't get around how these movies keep getting made, but Gods of Egypt. Every time I see a movie like this, I'm like, are they just trying to make 300 again? What is the deal? Because it seems like they do this a lot. Like there's a lot of these movies that come out that are trying to be 300 again, and 300 is now a 10-year-old movie. Nobody has been able to do it. I remember in 2011, there was a movie called Immortals that came out that was from the producers of 300, and it looked just like 300.
Yeah.
Gods of Egypt it looks like 300 because Gerard Butler's in it.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing. He's yelling, he's being Gerard Butler. There's another
Scottish Egyptian.
Yeah, Scottish Egyptian. Yeah, it's weird. How does he get? He's like a chameleon almost in these roles, right? But like there was another one, Pompeii, that came out a couple of years ago that wasn't really 300. It started off that way. It was kind of like Gladiator. Gladiator's really the one that really kind of started all that. But the one thing that I notice about all these movies is that they always have that yellow gold CGI tint to it.
Yeah. What
is the deal with that? It's like every single movie has to have that in it. And even movies like Watchmen, have those scenes in it where there's like there's just like a giant gold CGI structure that shows up in the movie. It's almost like they've done some sort of marketing research, and it's like, people really love that gold color. Let's put that in everything. Yeah.
It also reminds me of those movies with the guy from Avatar where he fights against Titans. Titans.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that goes along with it too. Those are they're all the same movie. The swords and sandals epics, basically.
Yeah, you can throw Troy in there. There's a bunch of movies like that.
Exodus, Gods and Kings.
Yeah. And then they start kind of blending in with all the the religious Easter movies that they start coming out with this time of year now, because they're all trying to be Passion of the Christ. That's another. I mean, we talked about this on the last podcast about Deadpool and how studios will find something about a movie, and then they'll be like, all right, we need to repeat these 5 things, and this will be, so
that crucifixion was gold.
Yeah, exactly.
Jeez, I'm glad you said that, not me. God.
And exactly, it was gold.
Do that again.
It was gold. It made $300 million at the box office. It was gold. That's the thing, though. They don't look at why that movie was successful. It wasn't because it was religious, in general. It was just because it was well marketed, and it was, it was advertised as that thing that, all Christians got to see this, even though they don't really. But yeah, then when you start putting in stuff like Gods of Egypt in your title, and then you have all this like sci-fi fantasy stuff and everything, it starts blending in with all the other like Easter movies that come out, and that's like, man, everything seems the same all at once.
Yeah, that Gods of Egypt, I mean, hasn't it looked like a turd from the first frame you ever saw?
Yeah, and
it's a wonder it got completed.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate, too, because the director, Alex Proyas, has done some movies that, I've enjoyed, in the past. What is the deal with that? What is the deal with these movies?
Who are the ad wizards that came up with that one?
Exactly. Anyway, that's my little rant about movies that look the same, and we're going to get into some other trailers. Barrett, why don't you take it away?
Yeah, so I saw a huge dearth of trailers before I saw Deadpool, even more so than normal. And 2 of them stood out to me for very different reasons. I wanted to ask you guys about. So one was Hardcore Henry, which is kind of like for people of a certain age, old video games, the first person shooter started with this game called Wolfenstein 3D,
right?
And then Doom, and then Duke Nukem. If you guys remember Duke Nukem, this was kind of that type of thing that eventually ended up with Halo and things like that. And so this is a movie shot entirely in the first person, from a guy that's been killed and dismembered, it looks like, and then put back together by his researcher wife. And anyway, the conceit actually is really interesting, and it looks like the visuals are really interesting. And I think Jeremy said the same thing. I got the spins too. Like I got it's a cool concept at first, but I don't think I could handle it even for an 88-minute something.
I definitely will not be able to watch this movie. I was hardly able to watch the trailer, and I feel bad saying that because I do kind of like the idea.
I'm completely different from you guys on this. I don't like just shaky cam for shaky cam's sake, even though I think sometimes there's exceptions when the action's so good that it doesn't matter, like in Paul Greengrass Bourne movies.
I bet you said porn movies.
Yeah, the Paul Greengrass porn movies. Lots of shaky,
awesome.
Lots of shaky cam in those pornography scenes. I watched this trailer and I was immediately on board for it, and especially the shot of him jumping into the armored truck or whatever and blowing away all those people and everything.
Awesome.
It's kind of like, I guess, I don't know how people are talking about this movie, but it's kind of like RoboCop with found footage or something like that. It's almost like that. Because that's what it reminded me of immediately when his wife is in there and saying, we reconstructed you and everything. I do think there's that line at the beginning of the trailer that always makes me laugh because it's so awkward. It's like, they're trying to get your technology. It just makes me laugh because it's such an awkward line. But, I'm down with this, man. I really am. And I have a feeling that, as long as, because this is cut into a trailer, and it's kind of like how the Deadpool, you worried a little bit about Deadpool being an all break the fourth wall movie or whatever. I have a feeling that if they do this right, where there's some breaks in the action, you won't notice that as much, because in the trailer they've cut it all the way down to its most exciting points. So I am completely down with this movie. I can't wait to see it.
Well, I'm hopeful about it.
Again, I think I like the idea. It gave me it was a physical reaction. Like it almost made me dizzy just from, and maybe like you're right. Maybe it's just because the trailer was cut down to just raw kinetic action. And you're right. If there are lulls, maybe it'll be more tolerable for me. But I do love the idea, and I want it to succeed.
Yeah.
Well, it's at least a departure from the normal, which I guess you got to give credit for. The other thing the other trailer, for very different reasons that I was not intrigued with, was the Brothers Grimsby. Did you guys have you guys seen the trailer for this?
Yeah.
It's Sacha Baron Cohen. And what really gets me about this particular trailer is that it goes back to Sacha Baron Cohen's great accomplishments as Ali G. And then they say, here's Borat. And then here's some completely generic British comedic spy action thriller persona that should logically follow that up. And it looks horrendous. It looks like the least funny, least intriguing movie I've...
Yeah.
Well, do you guys think it looks attractive at all?
I didn't like it, but I will say the audience that I saw it with when I saw Deadpool laughed a lot. But I've never been a big Sacha Baron Cohen fan, so I just thought that was the reason it didn't appeal to me. But it sounds like it's bigger than that.
Well, and I feel like that's probably the problem with a movie like the Brothers Grimsby when you're trying to market it in the first place is how do we sell Sacha Baron Cohen to everybody? And yeah, they do this really disingenuous thing where it's like, remember Borat? He was in that, and it's and that's exactly what it doesn't make any sense. It's incongruous to what you see later in the trailer where he's just a buffoon. And everything.
A lot of pube jokes.
Yeah. And there's some moments in there that I think are funny. And I think even if you were in a theater where people were laughing at it and everything, they're not going to go see it. I don't really think they're going to see it. It doesn't seem like a movie that's going to be a big hit, but I could be wrong.
I don't know. It just looks lazy to me. It looks really, all the jokes just seemed, suck the venom out of my balls.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. We've never gone down that road before.
Yeah. What was there was one, what was it? It was a Chevy Chase movie where they did that. Was it Caddyshack 2? Where
They did it in City Slickers 2 for sure.
I didn't see Slickers 2.
He gets poisonous something on his, and he's like, suck my ass. You have to suck my ass.
Yeah, there was some Chevy Chase movie, and I can't remember it right now. But the guy was like, "You got to suck out the poison." And he's like, "Is there any money in it for me?" But yeah, we've seen that before, and there are a lot of just I mean, it's stuff like the Ukrainian Ben Affleck and stuff like that, where the jokes are, it kind of reminded me of how Pixels was, where Adam Sandler's like, calling people Gandalf and whatever. And it's like, yeah, okay, name calling like that is it's sophomoric.
Which is why we do it on the Sins videos.
That's correct. That's correct. It doesn't look funny. That's the bottom line.
Yeah.
So that's all I have for new trailers. But you guys wanted to talk about all timers and kind of the best trailers that you've seen, right?
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting conversation, and one that Chris and I have probably had a dozen times over the last 15 years. But Chris, why don't you start us off?
Okay. Any talk about best trailer of all time always for me comes back to Dark City, which we talked. We briefly talked about Alex Proyas a minute ago. Alex Proyas did that movie. For me, there's not one trailer during the entire time that I worked at movie theaters that I watched more than Dark City. I would find excuses to try to put that trailer on anything I could just so that I could watch it when I started the movie. And it's
The Lion King.
Yeah, The Lion King. Yeah. So like the thing is that it starts off just like your normal average everyday, science fiction fantasy type movie or whatever, but it looks really cool. And it's the way it builds up to the point where the music and the editing and everything just converge to this like amazing apex. And and when we're talking about trailers, there's not much you can do to really describe them. But just go find it on YouTube and watch Dark City trailer. It's just gorgeous.
Yeah, it's great. The easy answer for me in this debate is always, Alien, because it's such a famously amazing trailer. But
yeah,
let's be honest. I was 4 when that trailer would have hit. I didn't see that trailer like in a theater or experience it the way like a typical. I'd rather, for my toss outs in this discussion, I want to talk about just mine that I saw that I was like, whoa, that's really great. And I think you like this one too, Chris. But the Michael Bay produced Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah, so good.
With the snapshot and that creepy noise that keeps repeating. And, of course, and the movie doesn't live up to the trailer's hype at all, in my opinion.
Oh, no.
But I was similar to you with Dark City. When I knew that trailer was on a print, I would stay at the window and watch it just because it was so great. So creepy.
Yeah. Barrett, do you have any?
Yeah, there was one movie that I literally went to see not knowing anything about it besides completely pushed by the trailer, and that was Jarhead.
Jarhead's great. That is one of the best trailers.
Yeah, it was wild because it started off with the typical smart-ass Jake Gyllenhaal and the kind of jumpy CCR or something like that background music, and then it switches, much like the movie does actually, to this like more psychological, I guess, and set to Kanye West's Jesus Walks.
Yeah.
And it gets real moody and everything, and gets very intriguing. Like it wasn't, action packed. Actually, when you go back and look at it, there's a lot more action in the trailer than there is in the actual movie.
Right.
And then the final shot with Jamie Foxx just going hoorah.
Yeah.
It's just badass.
He's like, I love this job. I think every day that I'm in the Corps. Hoorah! Yeah, that's a great trailer, and it brings up a point about trailers is that it's a lot of times it's the music that really sets something into and that one's Kanye's Jesus Walks, and it just goes along with it so well. Another one that this is almost purely because of the music going along with it. And it's a movie that's completely forgotten today, is Strange Days. Ray Fiennes is in it, and it's got a bunch of people: Juliette Lewis and Tom Sizemore, Angela Bassett's in it. But it's another one that just builds up as it goes. It's got this. It just starts off kind of like, okay, well, this is the premise of it and everything, and then suddenly this just really ramped up music starts up, especially when they start talking about it's the end of the millennium and all this other type of stuff. There's all this celebration, but once the music comes in and everything, it just goes into just the stratosphere of this, like, just a hyper edited, crazy looking movie. And I'm like, I've got to see this, even though the movie wasn't all that good.
Yeah.
Catherine Bigelow directed that movie.
She did.
And yeah. But yeah, that's another one that I actually want our friend Mike, who might be listening to this podcast. I remember once, he came upstairs to the projection booth, and, I was sitting there, like, actually physically putting a Strange Days trailer on a movie, and I was like, I just have to do this. I have to show you this trailer, and that's basically what I did, was just put a trailer on a movie so he could see it.
That's awesome.
And just played it, and I was like, doesn't that look awesome? And of course, it wasn't awesome.
Yeah. Another one I remember really loving was the first full trailer for The Dark Knight, where it opens with the Joker's voice and kind of some eerie music, and you see that shot of Bruce with his mask off in his apartment, and then you see him on the building in Hong Kong, and it just builds really well. And of course, the Batman Begins had built so much goodwill, but the trailer really was the first glimpse we got at what Heath Ledger was going to give us with the Joker, and totally sold me on him before I ever saw the movie.
Yeah.
Do you feel the same with Leto's Joker for the Suicide Squad?
No, I actually don't.
Yeah, it's weird. Like, I'm interested in seeing it, but it's not one of those things where it's like, man, this is going to change the game. But of course, we're getting all these stories now about how Jared Leto scared the cast and stuff like that, and it's
sent him dead rat presents and shit. Like,
yeah,
I mean,
and you got to wonder if that's something that they've started doing to market the movie more than its real stories that are coming out.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still open on Jared Leto's Joker. I think he may kill it. I just don't think I've seen enough in the trailers to sell me as early as the Heath Ledger stuff did.
Right, and I think that nails it. It's not that we don't think he's going to be good. It's just that we haven't seen enough, and it hasn't really gotten into our souls yet as something that we think is going to be great as of yet.
Right. And I'm a big Batman fan. I read a bunch of Batman, but I'm no Joker purist. I love Jack Nicholson's take. I loved Heath Ledger's take. As long as he seems genuinely psycho, and in pursuit of chaos, I'm open to any kind of look or, voice or what have you. Yeah.
Barrett, do you have any other trailers that you were thinking of?
Well, look at it the other way, because I was thinking actually about The Dark Knight Rises.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Because that was a really terrific trailer with, almost the same type of chronology as you were saying for the Dark Knight, is this, single note, very somber and everything, starting off in the beginning and showing kind of the downfall of Batman with little intersperses of Anne Hathaway. And then, it builds to this crescendo, which is really, really terrific. And it makes you just think it's going to be the most goddamn epic thing you've ever seen. And it's the opposite of the feeling that you had walking out of The Dark Knight.
Right.
I just saw something that was even better than I was expecting. And it was completely different for me for the Dark Knight Rises.
I don't hate The Dark Knight Rises. It's got lots of problems, and it's nowhere near as good as the other two, but I probably enjoy it more than the average person, but it nowhere near lives up to that trailer. I thought that trailer was excellent.
What do you guys know of another trailer that completely hyped you up for the excuse me, for the wrong reason, and you felt completely let down?
Well, the Matrix trailer, I think I said this the other day when I recorded a different podcast, but I went and saw that with my buddy Josh, and it was on whatever we were seeing, and we didn't know anything about the Matrix. We just saw Keanu Reeves and running on walls and machine guns, and we were laughing we were laughing at how bad this movie was going to be, and that's why we went to see it when it came out. And of course, it's my favorite movie of all time.
Also on the same thing, and this is not really answering the question as it was phrased, I don't think, like a trailer that got us in the theater. Although we've mentioned a couple like Strange Days here, and there's another movie that I like. I actually like this movie, but Stir of Echoes has a great trailer too. Just set to I think it's a cover of Paint It Black. But like The Sixth Sense, along the lines of what Jeremy was saying with The Matrix, another 1999 movie, I thought this movie was going to be stupid. I really didn't think it was going to be good. And especially considering in 1999, you had that string of horror movies that were all coming out and they were all in the same. If you did a trailer package, it was always The Sixth Sense, Stigmata, and Stir of Echoes. We're all on the same thing all the time. And, and Stigmata especially, not a very good movie at all. But The Sixth Sense, I remember all summer we were like, what is this kid whispering about? He's whispering the whole time. It's so bad. It's going to be so terrible. And I was actually shocked. The day that I came in, I think it was a Saturday, I had missed the Friday opening. And it was selling out. I was like, people came to see the movie based on those trailers? Oh my God. This is unbelievable. And then I found out, the movie's actually really good.
Yeah, another trailer I remember loving, modern trailer, is the first Social Network trailer with the kids choir doing a cover. Was it Creep by Radiohead? Yeah. I just remember that told me everything I needed to know about the mood of that movie. And I love that movie. So
yeah. Well, it reminds me also now here's and Barrett, you know this one very well because we saw this movie together. The trailer for Catfish got me into the movie.
Catfished you.
It catfished me, indeed. It's an ironic trailer because it sets up like it's some horror movie. And I told Barrett, it's like there's this foreboding farm equipment outside when he goes to the house. And I was like, oh my God, he's going to go into something that's crazy here. And then I saw the movie and I was like, oh man, is that what this movie's about? Oh, this is so disappointing. So
I think it was literally how we sounded after we walked out.
Yeah. Oh my God. I thought this was going to be some creepy. Well, it was creepy, but it wasn't creepy in the way that after you watch the movie, you're like, it wasn't like that. It was more like, but that's one that got me in. I was like, I would just wrap me up in that trailer because it's so mysterious and everything. And then, okay, so this girl pretended to be another person.
You just ruined the movie.
Yeah. Did you know what? Alert. Yeah. If you don't know what fucking Catfish is about by now, then you shouldn't be listening to this podcast.
Well, yes, no. I mean, that's the joke. It's like you can't spoil that movie after 5 seasons of a TV show, right?
Right, exactly. But yeah, I could probably come up with a bunch of other trailers, but they all have the same kind of reasons for liking them so much, and it's usually because they start off slowly and then they build to this thing where there's a great music along with it. And everything. I don't feel like they do that much anymore. I don't feel like I've watched a trailer that's been breathtaking in a long time, like those that I saw in the 90s and everything, and a couple that we just mentioned that were past the 90s. But is that what you guys are feeling, or is it just that I'm jaded now?
I mean, I thought the Hail Caesar trailer was just a grand slam. And if I hadn't heard so much bad about it when it came out, I would have seen it by now. But I thought that first trailer I saw for that was as good as any I've seen maybe in 10, 20 years.
Interesting. I don't really, I'll have to watch that trailer again because I don't remember that having that much impact on me.
But you're right. I do think it's a completely different art these days. And it's a completely different reasoning behind the footage and the cuts.
Well, the cuts, yes, there's so many edits to these things. We were talking a few episodes ago, we were talking about the Star Trek Into Darkness, or the new Star Trek movie. And how hyper edited it was. And it was just like, after that little pause for some humor, it was just bang, 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 bang. Like, some of that is probably cool, but I have no time to actually like focus on it and like process it and everything. So unless you've got somebody that's parsing it out online to say like, this is the screenshot that shows this planet, and this is the screenshot that shows the Enterprise, running into the planet or that kind of thing. And just, it's too much.
Yeah. You almost get the sense that when they're on set, they're like, oh yeah, that shot we just got is a trailer shot. Like almost like it's part of the process now.
The next thing that we're going to be talking about is small moments in movies that really don't have much to do with the plot, but they are so great. They're things that sort of bring you into this movie in a way that that really sells it for you and everything. I'll give you a small example. In Star Wars, where Luke goes to the Death Star, he finally hits the Death Star. He makes that perfect shot, and then there's that little breath, that sigh he takes. Really sells that moment for that for that movie. If it's not there, it's still a great movie, but that really just puts it on a different level for me. When you have a small moment like that.
I'm so excited about this discussion because I have like a list of 12 of these things, and I think we're all going to surprise each other and remind each other of great little small moments. But the first one I want to throw out is from another of my favorite movies ever, and it's that Hunt for Red October scene where Sean Connery goes in to meet with the political officer in his quarters to discuss their mission. And as the political officer is reading scripture from a Bible he's found in there, it pans in on his mouth and he's speaking Russian. And then it pauses and slowly pans back out and he's speaking English.
Yeah.
And it's just a fantastic way to transition and sort of acknowledge, yes, okay, you're going to be hearing English from here on out, but they're still speaking Russian. And it's just one of those little moments. And I could probably list a dozen moments in that movie that are bigger and I love more, but that is so key, I think, even though it seems unimportant.
And amazingly, that has not been copied relentlessly.
Right.
For me, that's just perfect. I mean, McTiernan did that again with the 13th Warrior later.
I love that one too. That's on my list.
Yeah, the 13th Warrior does that exact same thing. And I thought, you would think that something so simple would be something that people would do more often, because a lot of times you're just sitting there going, how do they know English so well? Or they have this hard time of deciding, should we play this in the actual language and put subtitles, or should we have them just speak English the whole time? And then with something like that, so simple, it tells you exactly what's going on. And I love that moment too.
All right, Barrett.
I'm actually excited to listen to you guys talk about this, because there's just a wealth of things that you guys see that I'm looking forward to hearing about. The thing that immediately came to mind when Chris brought up this topic is in Pulp Fiction. It's in the scene where Mia Wallace is overdosed and Vincent Vega is on the phone driving her over to Eric Stoltz's house. He's saying, I'm coming over here, and the guy's saying, I don't know you, prank caller. And he gets to the actual house and he pulls in, he runs through the yard and everything. And then he leaves Mia Wallace, he starts dragging her in, he leaves her on the lawn, and they have this conversation. Like, obviously, he drops her, and Eric Stoltz's like, I don't want you. Why you bring some OD bitch over to my house? And I wouldn't do that to you. And Vincent Vega has this moment where it seems like it's entirely improvised, where he's like, you know who this woman is? This is Mia Wallace. And if you don't help me, then I'm going to be forced to call Marcellus and tell him that you let her die on your fucking lawn. Okay, come on, let's get a house.
Yeah, I love that too. Yeah, John.
It's just completely. It looks like it's thrown away, but I love that part.
Yeah, it's either improvised or it's like a take that wasn't the greatest, but it comes out awesome because right. Yeah, it comes out awesome because that's exactly how people would be in that situation, where they're trying to come up with the right words and everything. And yeah, it's beautiful. It's a great scene. I have a few more as well written down. The one that I emailed you guys about is in The Departed. where Jack Nicholson sees these priests over in a restaurant and he starts berating them about the molesting kids and stuff like that. But the priests are trying to be really calm and being priests and never get angry and all that other type of stuff. But Jack Nicholson ends up calling them a bunch of cocksuckers before leaving. And the priest reaction is so genuine. It's like, oh, he's like appalled that somebody would say cocksucker to this guy. And it just makes me laugh every time. And when that movie is on, like, I will stop whatever I'm doing to watch that, just because his reaction is so genuine to it. You don't see that very often. Usually they would just make the priest, let that slide off his back or whatever. But this guy is absolutely appalled that somebody would say it. And it's awesome to me.
Yeah, I love that movie. And I've seen it probably 50 times. And you could probably find 20 or 30 small moments that help seal that movie. I love the scene with Leo in the first time we see him in the psychologist's office, where he holds out his hand and he's talking about how his hand never shakes. And you can't, I'm always amazed when I watch that scene because his hand doesn't shake in that scene.
Yeah.
And I always hold my own hand out and I can't go a half second without shaking. And it's such a subtle little way to underscore what he's actually saying and what he's proving about his own character. But that's one of those scenes that I'm always like, I got to watch the hand not shaking scene.
Yeah.
Now, everybody that's listening has put their hand out and seen if it shakes.
I don't think it's possible. There are times that I've wondered, I wonder if they somehow froze the frame around his hand, but the rest of it was live action. Like, it's so amazing to me.
Yeah. And yeah, you're right. That movie has a lot of just small moments. There's another one where Frank pulls out the hand in the Ziploc bag or whatever. And DiCaprio is looking at it, and you can see the conflict on his face. He thinks it's horrifying, but he can't show that it's horrifying.
Right.
And it's just everything's written on his face during that thing, and it's just another great moment in there.
Yeah, everybody's great in that movie, but he's, I think, the best performance, Leo. He just has so many different things he does with that character. I love that movie.
But Mark Wahlberg was the best because he was the only one that was nominated.
Yeah, screw that.
Jeremy, do you have another?
I do. One I wanted to bring up is from Waterworld, which is not a good movie, but I love it so much. But early on, when he's escaping from the atoll or whatever and stealing his ship back, there's a moment where he jumps on the boat and the big arm, I don't want to call it a bow or whatever it is. I'm not a boat guy, but it comes swinging and it's going to hit him in the head, and he's not looking at it. It's behind him, and he just ducks down right when it gets there, and it goes over him harmlessly. And I've always loved that moment because it's like, look how one this guy is with his ship. Like, it's such a cool way to give me some character development in just like 2 seconds. I love that moment.
I'm gonna sort of piggyback on. Well, no, I don't know if you really want to call this piggyback, but I'm gonna stay on a boat here for this next one. I wrote this one down for The Whole Nine Yards, which is not an entirely successful movie.
Oh, I hope it's the one that I want to say about that movie.
Oh, I know this has got to be the one, but Bruce Willis and Matthew Perry are on a boat, and Matthew Perry is upset at him and everything, and Bruce Willis throws a beer to Matthew Perry, just like, here, have a beer or whatever. But Matthew Perry completely doesn't acknowledge the beer at all, and he keeps yelling or whatever while the beer flies behind his head. It's one of the funniest things I've ever seen in a movie.
I agree, and it's right after he killed like Fingers or whatever, like he kills Michael Clark Duncan,
right?
And it shocks Matthew Perry's character, and he's just standing there in shock, and the beer goes flying by him. And I agree, it's one of the funniest moments in any movie ever.
Yeah, it's like the beer goes flying by his ear, and he's like, "Why did you kill him?" And you're just watching the beer's trajectory during this whole thing. I don't know how they captured that moment, but it's movie magic.
It is. It really is great. It's so funny.
Okay,
All right.
Jeremy, go ahead.
Okay, I don't know why I picked a bunch of small moments I love from movies that I don't think are good, but did you ever see Disclosure with Michael Douglas?
I did. I haven't seen it since it came out.
Okay, so I only saw it a couple of times, but I think that's based on a Michael Crichton book, and I was a big Michael Crichton reader.
Yeah, it is.
And so, regardless of the plot, early on, he gets exposed for having had an affair, and I think there's even implication he might have assaulted Demi Moore. And they're sitting there with his wife, and she's just heard it for the first time. But there's a room full of people in a it's like it's a deposition, and she just plays off like she knew about it. She doesn't bat an eye, and it's just a small little cool moment. I'm not saying that wives who've been cheated on should support their husbands, but in that moment, she refused to be. They were trying to surprise her to get a rise out of her, and she basically defied them by just saying, "Yeah, you act like I didn't know about this." And it's just a very, very, very cool moment to me that for some reason stands out as one of the only things I remember about that movie.
Yeah, that's awesome. I have another one in Grosse Point Blank, another movie, by the way, that could probably be put into our underseen, underserved movies.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Grosse Point Blank is just an amazing movie, but the scene where he and the La Poubelle other assassin guy that's in the neighborhood are in his former home that is now a gas station. They both while of course this is a movie cliche. The clerk is sitting there playing a Doom arcade machine or something while listening to Ace of Spades, and doesn't see all this stuff going on in the thing where they're shooting at each other and blowing away all the merchandise and all this other type of stuff's going on. Stuff's flying all over the place. But there's a point where the bad guy assassin or whatever runs out of the gas station, and Cusack runs over, and he's still behind one of the aisles, and what he looks up at is a microwave that's got a bomb in it. And the first expression that Cusack has on his face is just, don't quite understand. I don't know what's going on here.
Yeah.
But just before he starts running out of the gas station, there's that moment of acknowledgement that, oh, it's a bomb, and runs out of the store, and then makes sure to get the clerk to come with him and everything. But that one expression of when he realizes it's a bomb is one of the funniest things I've ever seen.
It's such a great performance in that movie. That's completely underrated. The way he offhandedly references himself being a serial killer, to be a professional killer, to everyone who will listen, professional killer.
Yeah. And I think the whole movie is just delightful, all the way through it. It's delightful. There's a lot of these little moments in there where, he meets with Dan Aykroyd and sort of like a I don't know what it is. They're just out in the middle of the city somewhere. And they're trying to, I don't know. Aykroyd's trying to build this union or whatever. He's trying to make a union of assassins or whatever, and all that. Aykroyd is like, no, popcorn or whatever. And John Cusack's like, yeah, whatever. Because it's exactly what everybody else in the audience is thinking. It's like, oh, whatever.
Yeah, I fully endorse Grosse Point Blank if you haven't seen it. I probably haven't seen it in 5 or 6 years, and this conversation is making me want to watch it again, but I love that movie.
Yeah, and there's a great little turn by Alan Arkin in it and everything, as his psychologist and everything. Oh, there's just a lot of great performances in it. And Jeremy Piven is in it, and it's a movie that I can watch probably. I probably have seen it 30 or 40 times. It's one of those.
So, you guys ever see Tin Cup?
Yeah, I love Tin Cup.
Okay, so I'm a big fan of Kevin Costner sports movies for the most part, because they always tend to be good. But Tin Cup is maybe my favorite outside of Field of Dreams. And one of the small moments I love, there's a lot in this movie that I love, but he makes that bet with Don Johnson where Don Johnson's like, all right, you're 7-iron, whoever hits it the farthest. And he ends up betting his car on this bet because he just finished a round with just his 7-iron. He's a badass with the 7-iron. And so he hits into the driving range like 230 yards with a 7-iron or something, which is impossible. And then Don Johnson drops his ball and aims, but then slowly turns to he's pointed down the road. And there's this womp music that plays, and he hits it, and the ball's just bouncing, and you hear a little, jangle of the guitar. Is my favorite part about this whole scene is as it pans over the reaction of Costner and all his hick Texan friends. You hear one guy in the background go, well, shit, he hit it down the road, didn't he? It just kills me every damn time. That's exactly what would happen. Somebody would say that, and it's just it sells the entire scene, I think.
Oh man, that movie's so good, and I don't remember it being a big hit or it being something that people really talk about today. But that is a great movie.
Yeah.
It's Ron Shelton who did Bull Durham with him earlier, and then did that. Both of those are just great. Like you could watch both of those back to back as a great double feature.
Yeah.
Tin Cup also. I'm not going to ruin the ending, but it also has one of the best endings to a movie I've ever seen.
It does. Oh, it sure does. I love it.
Yeah, because it's it's so completely off of what we normally think of as a happy ending.
Yeah.
I have another one from The Dark Knight. We've talked about a little bit of The Dark Knight today, but it's another great moment is when Joker comes in to the mob meeting, and he's basically laid down what he's going to do and all this other type of stuff, and at the point where he finally gets up and he shows that he's got all these bombs or grenades or whatever under his coat. You have the one guy comes up and he's like, you think you can just come in here and steal from us and blah blah blah, and Joker's like, yeah. And they just cut on to the next thing, like it doesn't even consider it or
like
anything.
He's surprised they asked.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, from his perspective, it's just factual. Yeah.
Yeah.
Another Joker moment I love in that movie is when Two-Face wakes up in the hospital and sees the Joker there. And the Joker sheepishly says, hi. Every time I die laughing. Well, sticking with funny parts, from one of our favorite movies, Sneakers, which we've discussed at length before, there's a throwaway joke at the end that kills me every time where they get back to their headquarters, and one guy goes, I can't believe we made it. And another guy's like, I can't believe we pulled off the greatest sneak in history and can't tell anybody. Dan Aykroyd goes, and I can't believe tomorrow's Thursday.
Yeah.
It's just such a normal reaction to the few days they've just been through. It's like, I don't even remember what day it is. Like, I just love that line so much.
I enjoy the fact that after we mentioned Sneakers in that little scene or whatever, undersold movies or whatever, you've had a lot of people coming on Twitter going, yeah, finally watching that movie, it's great, and everything. It's finally getting. I'm hoping like it gets all of a sudden this weird renaissance just based on what we told people to go do and watch the movie and everything.
Amazing.
Yeah, suddenly people are like watching this 24-year-old movie and going, yeah, Sneakers, why didn't this get more play?
I saw a guy on Twitter say, today I learned that Sneakers is the really early prequel to Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
Well, that was pretty funny.
It also caused us to reference Dan Aykroyd twice in one podcast.
Yes, it did.
I will go back to Hunt for Red October. Another part I like in Hunt for Red October, which also deals with Russian and English language, actually, is after Alec Baldwin and the American crew have gotten to the bridge of the Red October, and they're kind of just standing there, and this is blinking light, and they have this conversation with translation. But at one point, he says something to his first mate or whatever he's called, XO Sam Neill, and he's like Buckaroo, like he thinks he's a cowboy, and Alec Baldwin laughs. And he says, you speak Russian? And he says, it's Nubarovsky. In Russian, Alec Baldwin responds, it's wise to understand the ways of one's adversary. And in English, Sean Connery says, "It is." And it's just a really cool moment where you learn both of these guys speak the other one's language. They get an immediate connection because of that. And, you're deeper than I thought you were. I just love that moment so much.
Yeah, and that's just another movie. I think if Jeremy and I had a shared movie library that we've seen a million times, Hunt for Red October and Sneakers would be in that whatever Venn diagram there would be. We've well worn those movies out because I used to have those on VHS.
Oh, and,
I used to watch those all the time. Those were just movies that are just always great. And I don't think there's anything bad about them at all. We did a Sins video on Hunt for Red October. But it was one of those where I was like, man, this movie's so good. I don't really care what I find in this thing. It doesn't matter at all. It's still perfect.
I was going to say, by way of not interesting thing I've been thinking about lately, like 3 of my favorite 80s movies that are in this category you're talking about, where I've seen them maybe 100 times each: Field of Dreams, Hunt for Red October, and The Untouchables. And what's weird about that is that Kevin Costner and Sean Connery and James Earl Jones are each in 2 of those movies.
Yeah, that's amazing. It kind of reminds...
I was just going to say, by way of segue, Field of Dreams has a moment I love, a small moment, when he takes James Earl Jones to the baseball game. And he says, "So what do you want?" And James Earl Jones goes on this mini rant. "I want them to leave me alone. I want them to think for themselves. I want them to look to somebody else." And Costner's like, "No, I meant, what do you want?" And he gestures at the concession stand, and just instantly, with no thought whatsoever, James Earl Jones goes right back into ballpark mode and goes, "Dog and a beer."
Yeah. It reminds me that, you mentioned this trifecta of movies that just happen to have, actors that are shared or whatever. There's a year that I always come back to on this. In 1995, there was this odd trifecta of movies that had one or the other of Gene Hackman, Denzel Washington, and Russell Crowe in it. Where you had, Crimson Tide came out, you had Hackman and Washington in it, and then Virtuosity came out, and you had Washington and Crowe in it, and you had The Quick and the Dead, which had Hackman and Crowe in it.
Nice.
It's one of those. It was one of those fun things of about a year that when by the time it was over, I was like, yeah, that's kind of a fun thing to think about.
Yeah, it is.
I have another. You mentioned Alec Baldwin and all that. Have you guys seen State and Maine?
Oh, I love State and Maine.
Yeah. State and Maine is written and directed by David Mamet, and we went in detail about Glengarry Glen Ross earlier in the last podcast. But State and Maine's another one of those, and it's such a funny movie, and there's 2 moments in there that always make me laugh. It doesn't matter if I know what's coming. But so State and Maine's about a movie where the small crew comes to film a movie and everything. And so the beginning of the movie is you see Philip Seymour Hoffman's the writer, and you have David Paymer as a producer and all that. And they're having this argument because there's too much. They're trying to figure out how to make this movie within budget and all that other type of stuff. They're like, we're really going to have to take out the old mill out of this screenplay. And they're debating on it, and like, yeah, this town doesn't have an old mill. And all this other type of stuff. And Philip Seymour Hoffman's like, no, we got to keep the old mill in. And so like, no, you're just going to have to rewrite it where the old mill's not in it. And he's like, okay. So you see Philip Seymour Hoffman, he's got this look on his face like, oh God, I can't believe I have to rewrite this. So he puts the screenplay on the wall, and the title of the movie is called The Old Mill.
I love him in that movie. He's so downtrodden.
Yeah, absolutely. Philip Seymour Hoffman had that like stretch where it seemed like he was always playing these types of characters, but in this one, it's particularly effective. State and Maine also has that scene where Alec Baldwin, Julia Stiles plays like this jailbait. Is she an actress in the movie?
No, she's a waitress. Her dad owns a cafe, and she delivers.
She's a waitress, and and so she starts fancying Alec Baldwin, and so there's a point where I guess they're drunk or they've been taking drugs or something like that, and they get in the car. and she crashes the car. and Alec Baldwin gets out immediately after the wreck and goes, and so that happened.
My favorite part.
It's such a funny movie, man. It's so good.
Yeah, it's just one of those. It's it's funny throughout. I mean, there's a lot of great things in it too. So I mean, if you haven't seen State and Maine, go and watch that.
There's a moment earlier in the movie when they're worried about him, and somebody says, "What does he like?" And somebody's like, "He likes 14-year-old girls." It's like, well, get him something else. Oh, it's such a great movie. This is not a surprising one, but I wanted to talk about The Incredibles. And specifically, and I don't think this is the first time we've said this, but when Dash is running away from the bad guys and onto the water and realizes that he can run on water and starts giggling to himself. It's so one great. Of the purest moments and it's not, I mean, I know everybody who likes that movie probably likes that moment, but I feel like that defines the movie in a way that no other single moment does. Just the pure joy of realizing what he can do. I love it so much. It's one of my favorite movies ever, and I could probably name a dozen moments, but that's my very favorite one.
It's sort of that movie's so anti what the Fantastic Four movies are. And I'll go back to the older ones on this. And it may have been like this in the comic book, but you like seeing that pure moment of joy when somebody realizes what kind of powers they have. It's kind of like in Spider-Man when he first learns what he can do in that. And in Fantastic Four, it's so dour. Like, they're like, we got to do something about this. We've got to get cured and all this other type of stuff. And I never liked that about the Fantastic Four movies is that, yeah, I mean, I guess you would want to get a cure and you want to get a normal life again, but there's so many cool things you can do. Yeah, and the only person who like really embraces it is Johnny Storm or whatever.
Yeah. Not to shit on your point, but basically it's interesting that the only one that played it to where he was enjoying this and that he was actually going to make something out of it was the guy that ended up having a super career being a superhero, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
It's not like Ian Gruffold is, lighting up the box office or anything.
Hey, now there's going to be at least 2 Ian Gruffold fans that contact you.
Question.
I have a question.
Just one more thing.
I want the truth.
I know more than you.
I think this one will be fun because we're old. But they wanted to know what our favorite video games were from our youth.
Okay.
And I'll start. You're talking to somebody who had Pong and then
wow.
an Atari. And so I remember Pitfall being in the Atari age, the game I played the very most. And I sucked at it, but I loved it so much. So that was definitely one of my favorite from my childhood. And I don't think any version they've made since to try and revive it has recaptured what made that first one great.
I had an Atari 2600 and I'm one of the few maybe who played E.T. the Extraterrestrial. When I was probably 5 or 6 years old, let's see, E.T. came out in 82 and I think the game probably came out the following year or whatever. I'm not going to tell you this was my favorite game, but at 6 years old, I didn't know how bad that game was. I really enjoyed it. E.T. was in it. Atari 2600 I had, but the games that I remember the most were, I played a lot of Commodore 64 in the 80s and then the Sega Genesis. I didn't have an NES like everybody else in the entire world had. But I had a Sega Genesis, and I played Phantasy Star 2 a lot. It was one of my favorite games. What else was on it? Revenge of Shinobi was another great one. A friend of mine had an SNES, and I used to play the hell out of Super Castlevania 4. Nice. Mainly because the game was so good, but it also had one of the best soundtracks I've ever experienced in a game before. It's something that I'll still go to YouTube, and every once in a while I'll try to find the music from that game and listen to it. And also on the SNES there was a game called ActRaiser, where you had it was basically a hybrid of sort of a populous type of game where you would set up a community and everything. But once you set up that community and everything, you could go into a side-scrolling action game. And I can't remember the gateway between those two very, very different kinds of gameplay or whatever, but ActRaiser was really fun.
On the SNES, we played the hell out of the Bomberman games.
Yeah.
And it might have even been Super Bomberman, but golly, in college, we lived in a suite with 6 guys next door to another suite with 6 guys, and all 12 of us would party play that game and just pass the controllers around as you lose. And I think we probably spent, if you add up all the hours, probably spent a year playing that game.
Wow.
That was on SNES?
Yeah, well, I'm sure there were Bomberman games on other systems, but that we were playing on the SNES.
Well, you mentioned, college days and passing things around. Well, passing things around.
Yeah.
But obviously the Nintendo 64 was the baseline for these huge multiplayers at the time, huge 4 controllers and everything. And of course the ground zero for it was GoldenEye.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Which is what I played the crap out of along with Mario Kart. And you could just go, you could look up and there's been 16 hours that have passed.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. GoldenEye is another one of those great party games, right? Where past the controller games. Everybody, you can have fun watching other people play that game.
Yeah.
I in the 80s, I used to always gravitate to these RPG games that were, I don't know how to really describe them. I guess they were text-based games, but they had some graphics, except for Zork, of course. I used to play Zork a bunch. It didn't have any graphics. It was just text. And you just tell the computer where you want to do. You want to go east, west, north. Do you want to pick this thing up? Do you want to die? Whatever.
These are simpler times.
Yeah, exactly. But there were a lot of other games that came out after that would have some graphics. And I remember one they used to play a lot of, and a lot of these games, I don't think I ever finished them. I ended up finishing Zork because I found a cheat thing later in life, and I was like, I'm just going to beat this game because I want to see what happens at the end of it, because we got only so far. But Fahrenheit 451 had a game based on it, which is really, really strange, right?
Wow.
And it was an RPG type of game, text-based game or whatever, where you're Guy Montag and you go around and
do you want to burn the books?
Yeah, well, there's actually
that was on Atari?
No, it was on Commodore 64. I believe a company called Trillium made it. But it had these 3 panels of graphics, and you most of the time going through the game, it would see this, you'd see the facade of one building, then the street, then the facade of another building, and it was one of those things where it was like, you'd be put in something simple like cross the street, and it would be like insert disc B into drive. And you'd have 4 floppy disks of this game that you can probably put on a thimble now. And it was incredibly fun to me for some reason. I can't really explain why, but it was such an unusual game, and I've actually tried to look it up on Google or whatever. I think it's so obscure that there's hardly anything about it anymore. But it was a game I played a lot.
And on Commodore 64, I think is where I fell in love with the game Gauntlet. Was that on that system?
It was on a lot of systems, actually. I think Gauntlet was on everything pretty much by the time it was over.
Played Gauntlet for years. And another one, if you want to talk about the text or mostly text games, was, I think we all played it, was the Oregon Trail.
Yeah.
We played that in school. And we also played that Apple IIe game with the green graphics of 2 castles on either side, and you have to shoot these line missiles and try and gauge the wind. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh man, no, I don't think I ever played that.
It was supposed to teach you, I guess, math or something. I don't know. We played it, for fun. Even when we weren't in that class, we would study hall, we'd go play that game.
Yeah, and there were a whole bunch of games like on PCs back in the day that I didn't really get to play that much, but that, you know, they started getting better with graphics and stuff like that. There was a lot of these, you know, first off, I had a friend that used to play Leisure Suit Larry a lot. They had a lot of those, you know, the porno games or whatever. They weren't like super like ridiculous in their porno or whatever, but they were the same. They were all the same type of deal where you would be in a room and you'd have to find items, and they're basically solving puzzles and everything. Leisure Suit Larry and Police Quest and King's Quest and all those. But the one that I played the most was Gabriel Knight, which had Tim Curry as the voice of Gabriel Knight. And the first one was about voodoo in New Orleans and stuff like that. It was a really fun game. They came out with sequels later that weren't nearly as good. Like the second one they tried to put in some more like cinematic cuts and stuff. And it wasn't Tim Curry playing Gabriel Knight anymore. It was like some other like low rent, Z rent actor or whatever, playing Gabriel Knight. And it's like everything was just wrong. If you played the first you played the first game or whatever, it was just everything was wrong about it.
What? It was David Hyde Pierce.
Yeah, it was David Hyde Pierce. And
David Hyde Pierce.
Yeah.
I don't know why I thought of David Hyde Pierce as a discount.
Pre-Frasier days, he was playing Gabriel Knight.
I guess it's because I watched Wolf last night and he was on that.
Yeah, he's in that.
Yeah. All right, well, everybody, this is the Sincast. We're here every Monday. Signing off, this is Chris Atkinson, Jeremy Scott, and Barrett Scher. We'll see you later.
Thanks for listening. Make sure to check out Cinemasins on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and Tumblr. And be sure to visit cinemasins.com.
That'd make a great band name.
Cavernous Vagina.
Cavernous Vagina.
We're a cavernous vagina.
What kind of music would they play?
Prog rock.
Yeah, it would have to be prog rock. And there would be like they come out with a concept album that has like 8 parts. You know, it's like I don't know, Cavernous Vagina Part 1.
Did you say Virginia?
Yes, I did.
Cavernous Virginia.
Cavernous Virginia.
And you see Depp go, eyes? We may edit that one out.
When the maid walks in, and it's like there's like the room is just trashed, and Depp comes in there with a gun and everything, and she's like, don't shoot me, I hate drugs, and he goes, so do we.
Yay, we did it. That was a good one.